Good evening, Galleon. This is Mayor Tom O'Leary coming to you on Monday the 28th. It's kind of nice to start a new week, given that last week was a bumpy week here in Galleon with a lot of discussion about issues I'm going to address tonight. But probably the most difficult thing that happened last week happened last Thursday when Flick Packaging, third generation company in town, had a pretty devastating fire. I think the two best things about it are that no one was injured, and that our fire department led a multi-agency response that really limited the damage. And I think the news accounts, they talked about 35 years ago or so, they had an even worse fire, and they rebuilt, recovered. My expectation, having known the family for about 65 years, is that they'll regroup. And my, I think, pledge from everyone at City Hall is that whatever assistance they need in terms of financial assistance, if that's the case, or just working with them to get permitted to get up and running as soon as possible, that we'll be there as they've been there for Galleon for quite a long time. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention tonight. The second issue that I want to go into, and at the risk of grinding away at detail that folks might be already tired of, I want to talk a little bit about the issue of shared laterals in sewer, and a request that was made on Tuesday from a private citizen for us to look at. She's part of a shared lateral, and so we've gotten quite into the detail of that particular situation. But then on Wednesday there was a long post by this citizen that really represented things in a way that are unfair and inaccurate. So I'm going to take a few minutes to respond, and if need be, or not need be, if it happens, there's some questions, we'll do our best to answer them. First, let's start with the shared lateral. There are two things I want to start with. One is the notion, the definition of a shared lateral. And then the second is to spend just a little bit of time understanding the history of how Galleon got sewers. And I think that's kind of important, and I'll try to finish with shared laterals in today's world and what the city may or may not want to do to correct the problem. So I think you may be looking at a map that's a little bit difficult to follow, but I want to make 2 points to you. In the I guess just off center in the middle of the map is the area in question, where there's no doubt there's a shared lateral. The question has been, will be over the next number of days, whether or not that is private property, and therefore the owner's responsibility to maintain it to the point it is connected to the city system, and then it becomes a public utility, whether it's that private, or whether in some form or fashion every yellow dot that's up there represents, in just that neighborhood within 3 blocks of that area, other parts of that sort of old south side, south of Harding Way, or Main Street as it was called in a lot of our maps. Those are all the shared laterals. In the post that was up Wednesday, there's some sort of Facebook wisecracking, and you get used to it, but there's certain things that you got to correct. And one is that a dispute over the comment of a can of worms. I don't know if it's a can of worms or this map's more like a Pac-Man, where you've got all these yellow areas, but those are the number of shared laterals. So my point to council is, if we decide as the city government to change the rules and begin to take over ownership and or maintenance of new laterals that presently are private property, and make them public property, there will be a number of other cases, that situations, neighbors who will come forward and want the same sort of correction for their shared lateral that that is under discussion for the people at 240 South Union. So among the things that we did, I'm going to deviate a little bit. There's a post today. It's probably going to go on for a while, but I really wish the post, that it would stop so that we could work things out. But the post today was about how nothing had been done. I know Law Director Palmer tried to explain what he's been doing the last few days. And then the post today somehow suggested that there's raw sewage coming out in the alleys up around the old middle school. So I requested that the sanitarium for the health department go up. And she did, and she didn't see any public health, saw no sewage. Not quite sure what the complaint was, but when you post that up on Facebook, there's a certain number of people in town, a certain number of people who care about local issues. Heck, a certain number of people are going to vote the election. And that kind of suggesting that there's a threat out there and nobody's doing it. We're just going to not fight back and forth on Facebook, but I'm going to use Facebook Live to sort of correct the record. So the other thing that we did late this afternoon, soon after that post was put up, was to send somebody from the sewer department out there to see if they saw anything that gave them concerns. And, down by, and there wasn't anything. There are situations in the north side of town, I'm going to jump a little bit here, but where we have sewers that discharge into or are connected to sewers that run along the Olentangy. And we do have problems with toilet paper and... It's the other thing I could have talked about to start with. It's been a really awful lot of ambulances lately, so anyways. Those areas, we know there are areas where we get discharge out of the sewer. So our departments know about those, and we address them when they come to our attention. They didn't see that up here in this area between Union and Boston, Atwood, and Walnut. So that's the area in question. All right. So let me summarize on this, try to move on to other parts of it. There are numerous shared laterals. That's what the expression can of worms or Pandora's box that I used at the council meeting, that's what that was meant to express. And it's kind of certainly not fair, but what's fair about politics? It's inaccurate to say that because I'm concerned about dozens of other situations, I somehow don't care about the residents at 240 South Union. It's just a cheap, and it's makes me wonder if there's not a make the mayor look bad component to this. So I can't let that set still. So we're going to address just a couple more issues. Talked with the plumbers. Talked with someone I've known for 30 years probably, who ran a drain cleaning business. So his job was to clean out these private laterals. He said he estimates there's over 100 of these situations in town. So my message is, if we're going to tackle these, take what currently under ordinance and past practice is private property and assume responsibility for that. And if we do for one, we are going to, when a problem arises at the other one, be obligated. Ordinance needs to be changed if that's going to be the policy, and we're going to be obligated to step in and correct those issues. So, a couple more things and I'll get off the subject, because I think the history of it's kind of interesting. These homes that we're talking about down there on South Union that are tied into the common lateral, One was built in 1880, I think 1884. The home where there's the biggest concern was built right at the turn of the century. And then the other home on the, will be the east side of the common lateral, was built around 1920. What we find out as we start to look at this, and this is the galleon history part, in 1908, so that's 5 or 6 years, 7 or 8 years. It was actually into 1910 and 11 that the construction of Galleon's first sewer plant happened. And there was a real original large trunk lines that didn't reach very many areas that were constructed initially. In the succeeding years, the existing residential neighborhoods were divided up into assessment districts, included in this. And as we're working through it, it looks like that house built in the 20s was built after this common sewer that ran, starts by the old middle school and runs south all the way down to the old Erie line down there on South Market Street, the Erie Railroad line. So it's relatively early in the system, and what I suspect is that these homes that we've been talking about started out with a well and an outhouse, and that they were among the first neighbors that were able to construct something to get to this new trunk line that was being built in the alley just west of them, kind of behind their house. So there's a tendency to look at what's here now and forget what the history of getting waste and fresh water in and wastewater out of residences and how that's changed quite a bit. And so in a very real sense, what we're trying to do is take a common lateral. We haven't really identified. Mr. Palmer spoke last week a little bit about this in a post that he made about the trying to track down whether there is an easement, whether this was ever officially permitted, and whether or not that sanitary sewer under the alley has the blessing, the legal right to be there. You know, all of that's kind of beside the issue of solving the problem, which is what I wanted to do and what I suggested Tuesday night at the meeting. Now, when you read the Wednesday post, you wouldn't know that, but Tuesday night at the meeting, and if you took the 2 hours and 15 minutes to listen to the whole meeting and the whole discussion, it's a little bit different than the commentary that was posted Wednesday about it. On Tuesday, I offered to council the solution that if they wanted to change the city's relationship to these private laterals and either replace them, I think that'd be my preference, because I don't know much about these various private pipes, and taking them on would be, to me, a higher risk than just fixing them and putting in new sewer infrastructure. But I suggested that's what council would look at doing. So this whole idea that we're not doing anything, we're not looking at anything, is it's unfair to the discussion, which is an important one, because this is just one part of town, and the presence of these common private laterals that tie into the sewer is it's really quite a high frequency. It's more than I expected when we started to try to quantify the size of the problem. So last Tuesday, I gave a suggestion about what can be done. Tomorrow night, we're going to have a special meeting that I called. I can't remember, in 8 years, this might be the only mayor's special meeting, but I'm fed up, if you will. People getting on, if folks are trying to get under my skin, you've succeeded, but I'm going to try to get this thing solved, assuming that the folks that are have a problem are, want to get it done and don't want to make a big stink about it. But it seems like there's a little of both going on, honestly. But anyways, what we're going to try and do is offer up to council a solution. It'll require 2 steps. One, transferring money from part of the sewer fund that is there for maintenance, repairs, and equipment at the wastewater treatment plant, and transferring sufficient money to build this sewer into the sewer maintenance fund, which that appropriation, that budget, it really can't absorb the cost, the estimated cost of this project without some additional funds. So that's one piece of legislation. The other thing that I'm going to ask is that that council affirmatively says, yeah, service director, go out, get quotes, if necessarily, bid the project, and let's get this thing replaced. Because there's a darned if you do, darned if you don't element. If we were just to put it in, I'm certain that the howling would come from candidates, potential candidates for law director, potential candidates for auditor, potential candidates for council. Hey, potential candidates for mayor may come forward and say, what is the city doing spending my money, public money, on a private property issue? So this is a way to get it fixed. We'll see what happens. I hope tomorrow night we have sufficient numbers of council members. Council seem to be interested in getting this thing fixed. And so what I'm doing, have been doing since Tuesday, is trying to get it fixed within the existing ordinances or modify the ordinances and in the existing budget, but transferring some money within the sewer fund. So I'm sure that'll ignite a bunch of nonsense out of, before I leave, I got a funny part about it. There's one guy in there, Jerry Mack. I can use his name, he's on there all the time. Everybody knows who he is. He agreed with the position I took, but he still had to be critical of me. It's kind of funny. And in that he said he's a former city employee, and he said, yeah, it's always been the case. The private laterals are private property, and there's yours to fix. I'm not, I think councils should think carefully about whether or not they want to take on what may be several dozen of these projects, but as we've done research about other communities around the state, it's not unprecedented that cities will take over these private sewers. It's interesting, there are more storm sewers where you see this happening than sanitary sewers. But the law director did some research over the weekend, as he said he would, and have got some cities that are not that dissimilar from Galion that have decided to resolve this kind of recurring issue of private sewers by taking over responsibility for those. So not unprecedented, not crazy about it, and it will be something that will increase expenditures within the sewer fund, but doesn't mean that fixing the situation on 240 South Union and tackling it in a way that sets us up to address these other, what will soon be failing private sewers. So I'll stop. I don't know if on that one I'll stop. Anything else? Any other questions off of that?
Yeah, a couple of comments I just wanted to point it out. First one came from Renee. I don't live in Galion anymore, but it just seems to me like y'all are dragging your feet.
Well, okay, Renee, I think that that in 6 days we have gone from council just finding out about it, law director just being informed about it. I think we're probably the folks in the sewer department, those guys that crawl down inside the manholes, yeah, those guys. They've been aware of it for a little over a week, maybe 10 days, and trying to figure out how to get a handle on this problem without violating the existing ordinances. So, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what would you expect? Would you want it to be fixed? Oh, here's something else, Renee, I'm sure you haven't taken into account. What this is going to require is the installation of a manhole. And what you have is an old clay pipe that's broken. So it makes no sense to install a manhole and connect it back to two sections of clay pipe, which, gosh, I don't know, 40s or 50s, something like that, is the latest, I'm sure, that vintage sewer pipe. But you can't just go over to Walmart and buy a manhole. So come on. Nobody's dragging their feet. It may seem that way, but that's what I just spent the last 10 minutes trying to explain in a pretty calm way, given my level of frustration with the inaccurate stuff that's been slung my way. But it's politics, everybody knows it. We're gonna get this fixed though, if council wants to, and maybe it'll frustrate the politics, the people who are trying to stir up trouble, but we'll find out. So, I just disagree with Renee's point in that it's, nobody's dragging their feet, and we're, heck, I wanted to have a special meeting tonight. So don't, all of that stuff, Renee and others that think this should be fixed right away, whether it's within the ordinance or not, it's gonna take a little bit of time. And I think, we're getting ready to get a manhole ordered. We're getting ready to get the pipe ordered. As soon as we have the authority to do it, we'll do what's called put a purchase order so we can buy the manhole. And we'll make sure that the pipe is ordered and ready for delivery. There are a few other solutions to that. In a lot of places, they'd say, "Sorry about your luck. You should have hired a plumber." Here's a message, and there's another comment on this. I'll make one thing. Lesson to be learned from this: hire a plumber from the community who knows what the hell's going on under the ground. And I'm sure I'll hear from the Millersburg plumber that was brought in to do this. They did work. They fixed what they could fix, but they didn't fix the problem. And not at one time did they contact us to let us know that they had a problem out there. And it wasn't until they left and it didn't work that we were called in. So now we're getting a little tit for tat, and let's veer away from that after we answer this next question.
Yep. Next question came from Tom.
Yeah.
He said, "So, are you saying if there is a line under an alley, which several houses tie into, it's private?"
Yeah. So that's how it is, and there's no easements for most of these. The heck of it is, and if this is Tom that calls or that asks questions weekly, he's in this business, so he would know that that's how it's done customarily. That is what I'm saying. If you listen carefully, either live or to the tape, you'll hear Dr. Fellner talk about a situation right by his house on Boston. It's one of these blobs on here, one of these big yellow blobs. The whole neighborhood is tied into a common lateral, and the way it's always been done, but we're going to talk tomorrow about changing the way it's been done, is just as you said, it's the private property's responsibility up to where it ties into the city, and then from there on it's the city's responsibility. You'll see this, it's not quite as common, but we see it on the water side as well. Somebody has a water break, it's on the city side of the meter, so you don't get charged for the water, but it's your job to maintain that service line. They get down there, the plumber, the contractor gets down there to install the new service line. They find out that there are more than one water customer coming off that. So there's shared laterals on the water side as well. Seems to be here in many communities in Ohio. It's more of a sewer and a storm sewer problem. A lot of the stuff that we found in doing the library work or the legal work was that many of the other cities have had these issues, usually around a private tile on the storm water side, not on the sanitary side. So, yeah, that is what I'm saying. That is, and he knows that is how it's done everywhere. So.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Next question tonight came from Jim. Just a point of clarification.
Yeah.
If the lateral is clogged in a neighbor's property but is not affecting the neighbor, who addresses that issue?
Well, that's where that's the dilemma. That's the problem. In this particular case, one of the other property owners tied in put their own new service line in, much as 240 Union did, but they tied it in to the west, very close to where this lateral ties into the main, and has no problem at all. So there's not a legal agreement that says you're bound to pay that price. And so that's something that's really common. Somebody fixes their own problem, they don't have a problem, they're not real motivated to pay for what they see as another one of their neighbor's problems. So that's maybe, it is, why I'm on the side of let's start taking care of these things in a more systematic way. Because what you find is a common tile put in 3 or 4 owners ago is not transferred in the deed. It doesn't, no one knows how it works until it goes bad and it's not working. And so it might be the case that we need to take a systematic approach to taking over these sanitary sewer common laterals and take them over as they're failing, or certainly before they fail like this, because you run into the question about, you know, the citizens in a tough way while we try to get things set up, ordered and installed. It's difficult to meet the timing, so especially because you're urgently, you know, you're at the end of that, you got a real problem as a citizen. All right, there's got to be, is there more on that?
Yes.
Let's go. Let's keep doing it.
Here. Tom had another comment.
Sure.
Anything within the city right-of-way should be maintained by the city.
The key word in that sentence is, and I'm the English guy on this one, it's subjunctive and it's like should. They should. Maybe they should, Tom. But that's not how the ordinance reads, and that is not how it's been. It's not how it is all over town. So I don't, and then, you know, okay, so let's assume he's right. It should be that way. It's kind of funny, Matt, isn't that what I have been saying for a week now since it came to my attention? We should look at changing that because of the difficulty, yeah, that is what I've been saying. Difficulty in getting neighbors who never invested in this, it's just part of their property, to fix somebody else's problem. You know, what a brotherly love, what a neighborly thing to do, to refuse to help fix out, clean the common tile. But maybe it should be. We'll see what council says if they want to adopt a. One thing I'm against is a 1-by-1 fix it. What I would describe maybe as, here's another one, somebody would be offended by this, huh? A squeaky wheel kind of thing. What we got going on here now is just louder and louder and louder with the squeaky wheel. So that's what I'm saying. And if we take it over and change the ordinance, then that'll clarify this issue. All right. I do like the back and forth. That's really, in effect, kind of awkward doing it through a translator, but if Tom's got another comment, I'm quite all right with that, or anybody else on the subject.
Okay, I do have a kind of a separate but related topic.
Okay.
This one came from Joey. He says, I have a hole in the alley next to my house that goes into the storm drain. How does he go about fixing it?
Well, the storm drain, I think the best way is to shoot Matt a message where we're talking about, then we'll send somebody out to look at it. I'm not going to venture. There could be a lot of things going on. Your outlet off your house, you know, your roof water and the other storm water that's coming off your property, there may be a gap there. The tile may have broke going into that catch basin. So there's a lot of things that could be going on.
And Joey did send me his address. We will get it sent to the service department.
All right. You know, based on my confidence, my opinion, they'll get it done, and they'll address it in a way that's pretty solid for a town our size. Now the Facebook, everything's wrong, we'll say, well, they won't even come out. So, all right. I don't want to pick any more fights about this, but we are going to resist any kind of suggestion that we're not doing anything. What we're doing is not doing anything in a shady way. We're doing it according to the rules, because if we do, as I said before, there are some people waiting to, if the law director doesn't do his job all the way, service director, same thing. So I think being cautious and dragging our feet, as Renee is suggesting, are two different things. When you're on the waiting end, there may be no difference. But when you're on the planning and trying to do it right end, there is a difference. So, all right, tomorrow night we'll have a council meeting. Wanted to have it tonight, but I still don't know why we didn't. But here we are, we'll do it Tuesday. And council is able to get there in sufficient numbers and agrees with this approach, then we'll be well on our way to getting the specific problem on 240 Union and the neighbors addressed, and then setting precedent and policy going forward. All right. Any more questions?
Yeah, I had a couple more here.
Let's go.
I want to jump back to one that Cindy had. She
Yeah.
asked, when will street paving begin?
We were I'm bugging people all the time. Can you imagine that? And we were talking about that today. We've got a selected contractor, and we'll post it up there as soon as we know. Pretty soon, I hope. How's that for a non-take charge answer? No, honestly, we're talking about, we're touching base, and if the question of service director was here, she'd probably tell me what the contractor said today, so. It certainly will be done before the big ODOT job starts later this fall. That gets pretty chaotic. They overlapped a little bit last summer, and it wasn't as bad as I thought, but we hope that they'll be done here before school starts, whatever that is. Crappy answer. Who asked that?
That one came from
Who? I apologize. That wasn't a great answer, but we did contact them today, and we'll post up there as soon as we know. Hey, along those lines, and I think it's probably on the website, but talk about irritating if you don't know about it and didn't plan for it. The closure of the Portland Way Railroad crossing that was all scheduled and ready to go, and then the crew got sick, and they scheduled that, they canceled that. That's back on, and I believe it's next week. I believe it's after the 4th. They'll be in that week, probably shut down for a week. So for those dozens of people that go to Marion or Columbus, or just to work, or just to do business or whatever, be mindful of that. And all right, other questions? Because I got more topics. You got anything?
Yeah, I had a question from Brian.
Yeah.
There was some discussion online last week about a house on Tid Drive that has been flying a Biden flag with an F-bomb on it for months.
Oh.
This question is that legal free speech, or is it illegal in Gallion?
I don't know the answer to that. My reaction is it's probably legal free speech. It doesn't say vote for him. It's not a campaign sign. We've taken a hands-off. I know if you lived there, Brian, and you find the F-bomb offensive, or you're a Biden supporter and you just don't like what the guy's saying, there's Trump signs up around town, they're yard signs. I wouldn't expect that to be a big priority. So, but I will find out if there's an ordinance that's being blatantly violated, because that ain't cool. I guess I haven't been on TID. Is it home aid? He said kind of facetiously. Yeah, I don't know what to say, except we'll check to see if it is an ordinance, and if not, I probably wouldn't be initiating an ordinance to prohibit it, kind of on the free speech side of things. So, all right, that all the questions?
That is all I have as of right now.
Yeah, what I expect is that I want to fix the problem on Union Street. I wanted to fix it Tuesday. I gave the council a way to get it done. We're going to talk about it again a week later. I think we're gonna move on that. I hope we're gonna move on that. But it's, you wonder why people, I'm 65 years old, you know, I've been doing this in the city of Galion, the state of Ohio, for, this is my 40th year. So I've heard a lot of the criticism. I don't like it any more than anyone else. But I tell you what's gonna happen, and it's happening. You have council members who are actively considering not running again. And maybe some people are applauding out there, yeah, get rid of them. You know, some of these council members have 30 years, 35 years worth of knowledge about the city. And the kind of stuff that's been out there, fashionable on Talk About Galion, is the kind of stuff that causes good people to leave public office. So at some point, all the critics, you may just succeed and chase off all the people who are interested in trying to do a job for their city and care about individual people, but also look at the greater, you know, community and all the utility customers. It's not going to do it. Just people are just going to stop doing it, and then we'll be in a world of hurt. I think I'll jump from that topic, segue into the pay raise discussion of last week. If you turn this running for office and being in office, turn it into more contentious, more of a hassle, more of the criticism that goes beyond legit or fair, then you're going to see a different kind of candidate and different kinds of qualifications, and I'm not sure that'll be good for the city. Last week on Tuesday at the council meeting, after we had the long discussion about the common lateral issue, there was another long discussion of pay raise, and my opinion on that has been the same since 13, since I was first elected, and they changed the salaries a little bit. It was kind of a, I don't know, it's too old, but that 19,000 that the old council, the last council, set for the mayors, that was almost spiteful, but maybe they had a reason to do it. But the 30,000 that it has been the last 8 years, there's a rationale behind it, and that's the median income in the town. And these jobs shouldn't be for greater glory and for all the money in the world, and I know I'm a dinosaur when it comes to this, but that's not why I've done it. And as I said at the meeting last week, I don't think you should raise the mayor's salary. If anything, you keep it at the median income so it goes up $4,000 or $5,000. I also have said privately in talking with council members that if you want to raise the salary to what it's worth, you would have to raise it significantly, because very strongly believe that the way the city's managed and the direction it's going is better than it was under the highly qualified first two city managers. Well, sure, I'd say they had qualifications. I'm not sure about the execution. And then the last two had really limited qualifications. So the performance the city gets has very little, it's not connected to how much you pay the man or woman. And so, my take on the pay raise discussion is leave it where it's at. Be cautious, council, in extending taxpayer-paid benefits to the administrative offices, because those benefits will be equal to the salaries almost. And it's also the city and the schools have traditional benefits back to the old days, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. And not everybody else in town that works hard for a living has that generous of a benefit plan and retirement plan, and the mayor doesn't need anything much more than the average guy. So that's where I'm coming from on that. I don't know, I think there's an ordinance being drafted at the direction of one council member to look at updating those or upgrading those, and time will tell. But I think I'm certainly proud of the effort and the results that our mayor's office and small staff that we have accomplished. We're not sitting on our heels. kind of whipping forward, trying to get as much done as possible. But this idea that in order to get quality people who know what they're doing, you have to pay them more. It's like, no. Just look at the last 30 years and see how that's working out. So that's on the pay discussion. 2 more items, and then we'll see if there are any more questions. There is a contract that was two approved uses of CARES Act funds was passed last Tuesday, and so we're well on the way. We've got one contract in the hands of the chamber to look at the business grant program. We've tried to give them a little bit of direction, and that is we want to make sure that funds are provided to the businesses that borrowed money from the Port Authority about a year ago, maybe. Gosh, you lose track. It's probably been a little more than a year. And then it's gonna the rest of how they divide up that $200,000 is really at the chamber's discretion. They just did this last November, I think it was, November and December. So we hope they just use a very similar template with discretion or consideration of the people who owe the port money. And then the second contract is we're going to make a run at it, and I'm going to scold folks. There's a utility relief, utility rebate program that we're going to have United Fund handle, seeing if maybe the fact that it was through the city, some people shied away. But I encourage folks who had any tough times during that COVID year, that their financials situation was pinched, come up. You'll be able to get the details on where to apply and get the paperwork done. I'd encourage you to use this rebate, and that will take care of the CARES Act dollars. Okay, 2 more topics. The American Recovery Plan Act. Oh my gosh, 2 months ago, soon after that was passed, there were a number of stories written, and I believe I shared a number of 1.8 million that the city of Galion had been earmarked, or that's what we expected to get based on the formula. And a lot of wrangling in Columbus this time of year, every other year as the state budget. And in that process, the townships which had been cut out of the Recovery Act money were included in the General Assembly, by the General Assembly. And I've reached out to our legislators, senator and rep, about what I think is a solution that might work, and that is, like in the CARES Act, money that townships and villages didn't use then was reclaimed to the county and then redistributed by the county auditor. That's not, I don't believe that's how it is in the recovery plan distribution. The net effect of that is we lost about 1/3 of the money. So we thought we would get 1.8 million, and we lost $600,000-700,000. So, an old song, you can't lose what you never had, so I guess I can't complain we never had it, but we sure had thought about it, and that will change a little bit of the discussion, the perspectives when it comes to the countywide distribution of these funds. I've talked about that on Monday nights a couple times. I won't start that, but it puts, I think, even more of an emphasis on the townships that would be receiving these water line extensions. They need to contribute some of this newfound Recovery Act money to those projects. And I got to laugh, or got to smile. We'll see how well that conversation goes. They told me to have a donut last time, which is a sweet way of telling me to be quiet. But, last thing that we've got to get moving, and that is council acting on a proposal that was made by the Port Authority. You know, last Tuesday it was a 2-hour and 15-minute meeting, and this topic didn't even get discussed. So we're going to bring it back, not tomorrow night, but keep it in front of council. We don't meet till the second week in July, so it's like a 3-week break, but we'll try to get this idea in front of them. It involves taking some of the money that we have invested. And that's not even the way to say it. It's general fund surplus, and loaning it to the Port Authority so that they can get 2 housing projects that have slowed to a halt, get those started, and provide the money to the developer in a way that is fully recovered by the Port Authority, and then a mechanism to get it back to the city. So it's a way to get the projects, those 2 projects, the Wrenchville housing, the completion of the Carter Crossing apartments. It's a way to get that going that doesn't put at risk any of the city's money. And so anyways, it was explained. The Finance Committee reviewed it, voted it out. For some reason, it didn't get turned into an ordinance, and it frankly didn't get any real discussion last Tuesday. So that's the last issue that we want to try to bring up and get that moving. Some controversy still. I think the community is of 2 minds, if you will, on the Free Center, but it seems to me only the least pro-growth people in town are against new housing. Now you see them out there, you read their kind of funny comments. I don't know what they, out of the same mouth you hear Galleon's a dying place and somebody needs to do something, and then when you do something, they howl at the moon about how what you're doing's wrong. So they fancy themselves as influencers on this social media. Some of them ought to take out a petition, run for office, instead of always being the wise gal on the internet with all the halfways inaccurate in statements that incite people. So there was some comments about the housing and criticizing the housing last week. So that's my pretty much lame effort to address that and sort of flick my finger at that point of view. If you want the town to grow, you're going to have housing, because that's where people live, and that's how you grow the town. Whether or not you need one development or not, that's more discretionary, but only a fool would argue that we don't need new housing in this town. And so that's kind of where that's at. So, all right, long yakety yak monologue, a lot of subject matter there, and if there are any questions, we'll have at it.
I just have one follow-up question going back
Yeah.
to the sanitary sewer
Sure.
discussion.
Sure.
This one came from Tom.
Yeah.
But in many cases, smaller mains were put in alleys because the sanitary sewer was not in the street in that area. Who is responsible for those?
Well, those are they're not smaller. The one in question was installed largely to the first customer on that line, if you will, was the middle school and the preceding schools up there. And it's it's kind of interesting for people who are in and around sewer and water issues to spend some time researching, and we have spent quite a few hours, the progression of when and how the sewers evolved in town. And so secondary lines that were public lines from the start are smaller, and they are in alleys. But in this one in particular, I think, God, I wish I remembered, I think it's I'm not even going to say. It is a large trunk line that runs from the south side of the old middle school property all the way down to the old Erie Railroad right along there on Market Street. So it's a significant trunk line. It ties in with some other stuff that was built pretty early on. But while you may be right, generally there are smaller ones that are ours. We maintain them, but the smaller laterals are historically been maintained by the people in the shared laterals. I think that answers this question, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are some small ones, and they're public, and we maintain them. This one is not one of those.
And Greg just had a comment on the topic.
Mhm.
It's likely that the owners at the time chose to connect that way and were allowed to do so. The current situation is a legacy of that. It's not ideal, but also not the city's responsibility to correct as it stands now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and that's what the question is. I argued with my wife on that. You know what a bad idea that is? Argue with your husband, argue with your wife with them. And I'm pretty much the progressive on this one, and that is, maybe we need to evolve how we're going to address it. As I said before in passing, like there, so many of these, hardly any of them. How's that for a data? How's that for a general statement? Is there one of the original property owners? They've turned over, they passed on, a family member inherited it, so that the original agreements, and unfortunately those original agreements we're finding are not, in particular to this, there's nothing at the courthouse, there's nothing attached to the deed. It's not like when you bought the house, you also bought this private sewer that came with it. There's little documentation, and that's why, as it is now, it's private property. But we may want to look at, as these tiles get 60, 70 years old, they break down like mayors and other older people in the community. So that's what I'm proposing. There may be a way, we'll have to pay for it as the mutual 6,000 sewer customers will have to pay for it somehow, but that may be the best way to address it because it is piecemeal, it's historic. People ran sewers when they had to and when they had the opportunity to. And so anyways, I guess I agree with Greg's point of view on that, and what I think council should consider is whether or not we want to keep how it's been going forward, and if we change it, how do we, by what plan do we attack these? I'm going to wind up on this. This literally is within 2 blocks, maybe 3 blocks. This down here, am I on now? This up here in this corner? Okay, that's down by Orange Street. It's Harding Way and Orange and Cherry. That whole block, they all have common laterals. So it is something that, and as I mentioned, they're along Harding Way in Boston. It's a whole block of common laterals. And so that's the thing that we need to take into account. And you go, and I guess there'll be some people squawk afterwards on this. Just because you fix one doesn't mean you have to fix them all. Well, of course it does. And not all of them are going to go bad at the same time. But certainly after we address one different than it has been, it will, other people will look for the same sort of relief that these citizens are now. So. Anything else?
Just a quick comment from Brian. He said the American flags lining Harding Way look great. Happy 4th of July.
Hey, thanks. That's a real positive thing. I keep checking. I've been more of a nag than usual. I keep checking to make sure that the veterans banners are haven't arrived, and that when they get here, we're going to get them up. So I think, the flags do really look nice. Sense of pride. It's the best in a community like Galion. Some of this scratching at each other's eyes and accusing public officials of stuff, that's not very flattering. But anyways, I think everybody gets joy out of those veterans banners, so I can hardly wait till they get up as well. So, all right, that's all I got. Hopefully we'll have enough council meetings tomorrow, or council members tomorrow night to conduct business. But the worst that would happen is we would get a first reading on this idea, discussion among the council members there, and be closer to having a resolution of the problem. And no one should feel like we're dragging our feet. It's the first time in 8 years I've called a special meeting, so I wouldn't call that foot dragging. All right, my grouchy, tired voice, I'll let it go at that. Thank you for watching and sharing, and we're going to try to tackle the various problems. There's been, in the mix of all this fuss over South Union, there's been this cropping up of galleons going downhill. It's like, I wish some of those people would comment here and put some specifics around it. It seems way too easy to denigrate the town on Facebook and then take no responsibility for making it better. So anyways, I'll see you next week. Tune in tomorrow night. I think we'll make another, I think the video at our council meeting is going to get better. Bear with it. It's very much low budget, and we're proud that we can get it out there and not have spent a lot of your money to look good on local TV or local streaming. So, see you, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.